Welcome back. I'm joined by Fritz Neighbor of the Daily Interlake. We're going to talk a little bit of Grizzly football, a little Bobcats football, maybe a little FCS playoffs in general today, little playoff preview special. Thank you to Fritz for taking the time to join us. Fritz, you were at that Grizzly comeback last weekend versus SEMO, one for the ages. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that one first, give you the floor to tell how that one was, because I got to imagine the energy was pretty low before that kick return by Malik Flowers, and then all of a sudden it was a different ball game. So just kind of want to give you the floor for that one for a sec.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember when they played South Dakota State in '09, and a lot of the same things happened. Really bad first half. Not much went right. South Dakota State came out the second half and in '09 and threw a long gainer, 64 yards, something like that. Set up first and goal, scored 48-21. So you're thinking, that's it. In fact, a friend of mine left the stadium that day. And but by the time he got to his truck in the parking lot, the cannon had gone off because Mark Mariani had taken a kickoff back to the house. And, fast forward 13 years, first round game, down big at halftime, give up a long drive to start the third quarter, fall down 24-7, and then next thing you know, and part of it is what they had to kick from their own 20 because of a personal foul, but they really had no choice but to kick it deep and let Malik Flowers catch it, and then the script flipped right then.
Yeah, history writes itself. It's you can't write it any better. The Mariani return, I did see that all over Twitter going viral, everybody bringing that up. And like you said, to be down 48-21 and to make a comeback, and then a couple, here we go, however many years later to do it again is pretty special. I did want to ask, when Junior Bergen returned that punt, if that was kind of how electric was it in the stadium? Was the decibels going off the Richter there? I just got to imagine that one brought the house down.
Yeah, the stadium was barely half full. They usually don't draw great. There's an even smaller crowd than you usually get on Thanksgiving weekend. Been quite a few Thanksgiving playoff games at Washington Grizzly Stadium. Not that late and maybe not that cold. But, 13,390 sounded a lot more. Sounded like a lot more people than that when Bergen got loose. And that was one difference between the '09 game and the '22 game, is that the Grizzlies got two special teams touchdowns this past Saturday and needed them, really. And the second one knotted the score, and I think really gave them the momentum that they've been lacking up to that point.
Yeah, I did feel like that kind of was the stamp they needed. Like, okay, we're back, we're in this game, and we can win this one. And I'm sure Coach Bobby Houck has to love that, being a special teams guy, that it came down to the special teams unit making a couple plays. So I'm sure that'll have him happy. As far as that matchup with the Bison, I know that historically is one of the toughest matchups at the FCS level. Just to lead into it a little bit, I did want to mention, I'm sure you're aware of it, but star fullback for the Bison, Hunter Lupke, I might have said that wrong, but he's going to be out with a shoulder injury, and they are going to be missing 5 starters from the regular season. A couple reports that I've read said, so maybe the Grizz were catching them at the right time. They did have a couple mutual opponents this year where Indiana State and South Dakota and the Grizz had more convincing wins. Now, all that being said, when the ball drops on, Saturday, that all changes. So I just wanted to ask you, how do you see the Grizz going, out to the Fargo Dome and competing, and just kind of how do you think this one goes with the momentum on their side?
It's I don't know if there's ever a good time to catch NDSU.
Well said.
They've been so good for the last 11 seasons, but if there is one, this might be it. Three kids hit the transfer portal before their first playoff game. 2 of them played a lot. Then they lose Lupke. They didn't have Lupke for their last regular season game, which was their cross-town or cross-state rival, North Dakota. So all they did was run, their quarterback for 4 touchdowns and get 201 combined yards from their 2 tailbacks. And I don't know, their offensive line is every bit as good or better than MSU's. They'll run that +1 rushing attack, run the quarterback out of Wildcat, gives them an extra blocker. It's going to be tough. Is it an NDSU team that has a NFL quarterback? No. In fact, Lupke was probably their best pro prospect, is their best pro prospect. But they're still NDSU. They're 9-2. They're not the powerhouse they have been in the past, but playing at home. And I don't know. It's a tall hill.
Yeah, and with a team like that, like you said, it's like they have all the experience on their side in the playoffs. They have guys who've been there, and they have a system that works. I do think it's interesting how you mentioned their quarterback or their running back was out, Lupke, and then all of a sudden they just keep running it right down teams' throats. Reminds me a little bit of the Bobcats, how earlier this year Tommy Malott missed some time, and what happened? Sean Chambers plugs and plays and just does the same thing. So no, the system's there, the coaching's there. Like you said, probably not ever a right time to catch them, especially at home. So the Griz are going to have to hit a couple home runs early, drop out to a lead, because it feels like if they get behind against that running game, it's going to be a tough day. I did want to ask you a couple Bobcats things. If there was any other Griz stuff you want to mention or go over first, though, feel free. If not, just a couple Bobcats questions.
Well, the big thing you could take out of last week's Griz game is that they found their playmakers the second half.
Yeah.
It's been a frustrating offense to watch all year because Cole Grossman was so good last year. You figured he'd have 40 or 50 catches. He caught his fifth touchdown pass Saturday and caught one for the third game in a row. But he's only had 25 catches. In fact, I think Mitch Roberts is the only guy with more than 27 catches. And the Griz, when I see him every day, they have a better quarterback this year than they did that last year. So something's not connecting. But then every so often, as in the second half against SEMO, it did connect, and he started finding the playmakers, including Junior Bergen once, and Cole Grossman, and Keelan White. And there's a lot of talent in that team offensively, and they all need to get found. They need to hook up with those guys to get some points on the board to beat any issue.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you said, I mean, when it clicks, it really clicks for that offense. The potential's there. It's just the consistency hasn't been there. It's when you look at some of those scores they put up on teams. I mean, they ran it up on a couple teams. They had a huge second half last week. So maybe, they can watch that film, find that groove, because, I mean, it has been there at times. It just, hasn't been the consistent all season long. Now, as far as the Bobcats, I did want to ask you with this matchup versus Weber State on the horizon. The Bobcats have been rolling, but when you're playing a team for the second time and a conference foe, it kind of turns up the temperature a little bit. There's so much film to study. I'm just kind of curious if now it might be like North Dakota State, like you just mentioned, where their run game's so good it doesn't matter. But I wanted to ask you, do you think the Wildcats can have the wrinkles in their game if Weber State does stop that running game or at least contains it?
Yeah, that first Weber State contest was so weird. In fact, Weber State keeps having weird stuff happen. A lot of punt snaps, jailbreak punt snaps. At 4 of them against the Bobcats, at 8 points in safeties, they lost by 5. They dropped a certain touchdown pass late in that game. On the other side, I don't think MSU has had a worse game on defense and special teams this season. In fact, on offense, their first pass was intercepted. Then they started running like wild, especially Tom and Malott. But at some point in that game, I guess late in the second quarter, things started to click for the Cats, and they have really played good football since then. I know they gave up 2 touchdowns at the end of that first Weber game, but in the 3 or 4 games they've had since, they've just been so good in all phases that I tend to want to pick them again. There's a pretty good history in the Big Sky Conference. Then when 2 league teams meet in the playoffs, the opposite outcome happens from the first time. And this time MSU won the first one. So history would tell you Weber State's got the advantage this time. But I just didn't like the way Montana State played the first time. I think they've been playing so much better since then. I still think they're the pick.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And I kind of felt the same way, where I was really like, and that's an interesting thing about the Big Sky and in-conference play there, because it is so interesting where, like you said, when the first team wins in the regular season, it's often that in the playoffs the other team gets them because they know a little bit more of their hand, maybe they're a little more motivated, whatever it may be. But I do think that's definitely worth mentioning. It's true. And then Sean Chambers, I think he was out of that Weber State game. He'll be back for the Bobcats in this one. That could be a difference maker as well. One other thing I wanted to get to, if there's any other Bobcats stuff you had, I did want to ask you about, feel free to throw that out there whenever, but I also wanted to ask you about the FCS playoff bidding thing that's been going around social media a little. I did see you had a little column on that, just if you wanted to kind of tell the audience a little bit about some of the drama with the bidding and kind of the interesting way they've been doing things and why people are up in arms.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody in Grand Forks, North Dakota is up in arms because they bid significantly more than Weber State did. And both teams are unseeded, and Weber State hosted. Weber State probably should have been seeded. I think they're that good. but they weren't. And so they basically took, everybody's expectations and a lot of history and just threw it out the window and said, yeah, Weaver hosts. And Weaver, they bid $40,000, which I think is the minimum. Went a little bit higher than that. NDSU comes in with $127,000 and doesn't host. So it begs the question, what are they doing here? And why is the system still in place? None of these playoff games are real money makers, except with the possible exception of, NDSU and U of M. I imagine the Alero Center in Grand Forks would have drawn pretty well. Weaver State drew 4,400 people. I don't know. I just think that it's such a great subdivision, a lot of good football, and the NCAA just wanted to make a little extra buck here and there is kind of taking a little bit too much away from the product on the field.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll be honest, I was kind of unaware of how much the money, kind of impacted all the moving factors with the bidding and how to get a home game. And I wanted to ask you, because I do think it's so strange that you have a quote-unquote nonprofit organization, the NCAA, making a lot of money at the FBS level and throughout college basketball, and then here they have kind of smaller schools at the FCS level bidding for their playoff match. It's just kind of a weird format. Why not let regular season results speak for themselves? So I kind of wanted to give you that floor to mention that, because I did think that was really kind of a strange way to shake out the end of the season if you're North Dakota, where you think you're going to be hosting, and based off, like you said, the history. And then, so maybe they'll look at it moving forward, but I had to ask you about it. Weird stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, and I'm still kind of conflicted and I'll admit it, a little bit confused. You read that NCAA keeps 95% of the ticket sales. Well, then how is somebody who underwrites a bid for, say, U of M get that money back? And I know NCAA redistributes the money from playoffs, i.e. NCAA basketball tournament. But it's just kind of confusing, and you get signs, conflicting signs of what's going to happen. And I don't know, I think they'd be better off seeding 1 through 16 or even 1 through 24. And then they've been talking about expanding it from 24 teams. Like, please don't. Just let's get this tournament squared away and make everybody feel like they're on an even field and go from there.
Yeah, no, well said, Fritz, and that's great insight there. I think it's so crucial to have something like that with the postseason play be a fair process, when teams are leaving on the line all year, and then even, the Griz, they were lucky to host a playoff game due to this system, but they probably should have been playing in SEMO for that one. But hey, that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But no, that was great stuff today, Fritz. I'm looking forward to these two matchups. If there's anything else you want to throw out there, go for it. If not, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to Saturday.
Heck yeah. No, going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we're still talking some Griz and Bobcats football this time next week. So let's hopefully it's a good one. Should be a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
All right, have a good one, Fritz. Thank you. All right, that was Fritz Neighbor of the Daily Interlake. A lot of fun there. That's the go-to guy right there when it comes to Montana Grizzlies knowledge, and knows a lot about the Bobcats as well, Montana football in general. So great stuff from Fritz today. All right, thanks again to Fritz for calling in. Thanks again to all y'all for tuning in. A lot of fun on the horizon this weekend. Both Montana football teams are going to be in action. The Bobcats are going in the favorites. The Griz are going in the underdogs. Sometimes in the playoffs, things get a little interesting. So I guess that's my big thing is this time of the year, momentum's everything. I think the Bobcats are rolling at the right time. Like we discussed with Fritz, it's going to be a little interesting playing a foe for the second time, though. That's a conference team. I think that's going to be the big question for the Bobcats. As far as the Griz, it's all about, can you keep that momentum going early, maybe hit a home run right off the bat in the first quarter, get a stop, score a touchdown, get out to a lead, because it's going to take something like that, shake it up a little bit to beat a North Dakota State, who is such a powerhouse and has won when it matters so often historically. So it's going to be a great weekend of football. Can't wait. Go Griz, go Bobcats. I know most people, you're picking root for one, but like I said before, I'm rooting for Montana football. I'm hoping I'm here next week talking about victories and not losses. So let's see how it goes. I'm excited. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. You have a good one. And thanks again to the Flathead's best manufacturer, Nomad, for their support. All right, have a good one, y'all.